Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Gautam's Cooking Adventures.
In this episode, we will go through the process of making dosa and idli batter.
In order to make dosa or idli batter, you will require these components: idli rice, poha, some salt, methi seeds, and urad dal. And of course, in order to grind it, you will need some sort of a grinder. In my case, I'll be using an ultra wet grinder, but you could also do this on a regular mixie. The idli rice is basically parboiled rice, but you could, like I said, use any kind of rice that you want. It comes out just as well. It does come out better with the idli rice. The measure I usually use is it's actually 2 arak measures, and this is an ancient form of measurement. It's approximately 1 3/4 cup, but suffice it to say, it really doesn't matter what you use to measure. It has to be a combination of 3 parts of rice and 1 part of dal. I have measured out the 4 measures, which is approximately 7 cups of rice. I've also measured 1 1/3 measure of the kind of measure that I'm using in order to make it the 3:1 ratio of urad dal. Now the quantity of rice to dal can vary depending on each household. I do tend to make a little more than most households do, and that's because I share the batter with my son and my friend. So that's why I make more of it, but you might want to make lesser depending on your size of the family and how much you want to use this, how many days you want to use it. I've measured out approximately 4 measures of rice in my case. We will then proceed to wash it, clean, and then immerse it in water to about 3 inches above the level of rice, and allow it to soak for about 6 to 7 hours. Now, we will also be adding to this 1 cup of poha, and poha will help to ferment the rice faster. I have measured 1 1/3 measure of the measure that I've used of urad dal, and that basically makes it a ratio of 3 parts of rice to 1 part of urad dal. We will go through the same process of cleaning, washing it, and then immersing it in water to about 3 inches above the level of urad dal. To this, we will also be adding about 1 tablespoon of methi seeds. Now, you can always adjust your methi seeds based on how much you are going to be using in terms of dal. Too much methi seeds will make it bitter, but when it's a large quantity, 1 tablespoon may not be that much. Proceeding to washing the rice. Best done in plain cold water. The rice has been washed well, and to this I'm going to be adding the poha. Add additional water till it covers the rice and to approximately 2.5 to 3 inches over the surface of the rice. And this is what will happen is over time, as the rice takes in the water, it will swell and the level will increase. We're ready now. We've got enough water in this container. Now we'll move on to the dal. Wash the dal. The dal has been washed, and to this I'm going to be adding about a tablespoon of methi seeds, and then immerse this in water to about 3 inches over the level.
The rice and the dal have both been soaked in water, and now we will cover them and allow them to keep soaking for the next 6 to 8 hours.
It has been 6 hours since we put the rice and the dal to soak, and it's time to start the grinding process. So you'll notice that the dal has come up in in terms of the height, and it's absorbed enough of the water. So similarly, the rice would have also absorbed water and come up. You'll notice it's only about half an inch of water over the rice now. It started with 3 inches. I would start with grinding the urad dal first before we do the rice. Each done separately because they're ground to a different texture. So you want to do them separately. I'm going to start with the dal. And I'm going to put this into the mixer and then in my case, obviously I have a grinder and not a mixer, so I'm going to put it into the wet grinder. If you had a mixer, this is when you'd be putting it in a mixer. Obviously, again, the quantity of urad will define how many times you may need to grind in batches. Now, one can add salt at the very end of the grinding process when the entire batter is ready. But I prefer to add it now during the process of grinding so it blends better into the mix. To the urad, I'm adding approximately about 1.5 tablespoons of salt. And then I'll set the system to start the grinding process. Now, it usually takes me approximately half an hour to grind it in the wet grinder. It can be different in your mixie, so you basically want to grind it to a point of a blend, which I will show you at the end of my process here. Now, a quick tip, it's important that there's enough water when you're on a grinder to be able to grind properly. You notice that it's moving at a brisk pace. If the water reduces, the mixer starts to get thicker and it starts putting a stress on the motor and it will start reducing the speed. So it's important that you keep it well hydrated, and so that's something you want to watch out for. As you'll notice over here, there's a lot of water right now, and that's perfect because it will start to thicken as the dal gets crushed and made it more of a paste. It's time to do a quick check. It's grinding well, but it's become a thicker paste than I need it to be, and I needed to add more water to it. So here I go, diluting it somewhat. You'll also notice that it started to get faster. This is what I was talking about in the past. It's important to keep it hydrated so that the grinder grinds well and the mixture gets into the right consistency that you want. I'm going to check on the consistency. It's just right. You can actually feel it at this point in time. It should be a nice smooth paste, and that's what you want. So I'm going to stop. This is where I finish with grinding the urad dal. Now to check on the consistency again, notice that it's just right. It's still sticky, but it drops off, kind of sticking in drops. If it's too watery, it will just slide off, and that's not what you want. You want it to be in this form of consistency. I've now added the rice into the grinder, and I'm going to start grinding this now. It takes about half an hour cycle again before it's ready. Again, ensuring that the amount of water is just right, not too much, not too little. You want the mixie to run at an even pace without slowing down. So that is a good indication that you have the right amount of water. I've started the cycle with the rice now. And like I said, it'll take half an hour. We'll come back and revisit this again. Now I will be adding another 1.5 tablespoons of salt to this as well. So I'm adding the salt into the mixture, allowing it to grind and blending the salt also in it. The cover is back on to ensure that nothing else falls into it. And now I'm going to let this run for half an hour, and we'll get back and revisit this later. It's been a little more than 20 minutes. Now it's time for me to check on how the grinding is going. I'm just checking. The consistency is right. It's just a little coarse, just a little grainy, and this is just exactly how I want it. So I'm going to switch this off now and transfer it over into the large container with the urad dal in it. I've transferred all of the rice that I've ground into the main dish, which includes the dal. The white bits that you see there is actually the rice, and the yellow bit is the dal, which has risen over the rice. Now I'm going to mix it thoroughly till it blends completely. And you will see that as I'm mixing, the rice starts to come out, it's the white part, and you want it to completely mix till it becomes a fully mixed batter. The batter is ready at this point of time. However, remember that we will need to allow this to ferment overnight, and during the fermentation process the batter will get air, it'll get lighter, and it'll rise. So you really want to ensure that you have a large enough vessel that will allow for that rise. In my case, I have a lot, so I'm going to split this up into 2 vessels, and then I'm going to start the fermentation process. I will give you a little tip on how I do it. I'm in the US where it gets kind of cold, so I have a way to make sure that it stays at the right temperature through the night for the fermentation. As you see, I've now split it up into 2 vessels, and there's dough that occupies approximately half of the vessel's content in both these vessels. And the reason I do this is because when it ferments overnight, it will double, and it most likely will spill over in both of these vessels, or at least come all the way to the top. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. Now here's the trick I was talking about. As you know, I live in the US where it is cold. I can't get the temperature, which is typically 85 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is when it ferments the best. So what I do is I put it into my oven and I put the light on. The light keeps the oven at a good temperature, perfect for the fermentation process, and I just leave it overnight. See, the light is on, the dish is inside, and I'm just going to leave this now through the night. You may hear people tell you that you have to have a different consistency for dosa mix and a idli mix, but let me tell you, the mix that I've just done will give me a very good idli tomorrow, and after that I can start making dosas with the exact same mix as well. So I don't really have to make 2 different mixes. A single batter will work fine for both. When it comes to grinding, what I typically do is I start the soaking process around midday, between 12 and 1 in the afternoon, and then I do my grinding somewhere between 7 and 8 in the night. So that gives me enough time through the whole night for it to do the fermentation. So that's perfect the way I do it. Well, it's the next morning and it's time to check on our batter. As you can see, it's risen almost to the top. It could rise even further if I left it in the oven for a much longer time. But this is perfectly good enough for me to start making my idli today. So as I said, the first day after the batter is made would be when it would be ideal for idli. Can even be fine for the second day after that. But as it ferments further, it starts to sour a bit, and that's when it's ideal for dosas. Now that it's fermented, what it's actually done is the bacteria inside has created a lot of air pockets in between, and that's what makes it rise. And you can see it's become nice and fluffy, and you can see the bubbles as they come out, the air bubbles. So the batter is ready, and now all I have to do is start making the dosas and idlis.
Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click the like button, and do press the bell icon so that you can be notified of all our future episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.